In this segment for the Breckenridge design project under the terrain and site plan, we're going to look at the driveway walks and then actually using the stairs that will be adjacent to the water feature. In the view that I have here, I'm going to start with adding our driveway and put the curbing on. In the plan view, with my terrain configuration toolbar on, I'm going to select a Polyline road tool for the driveway. Come in here, draw out my driveway, and I'm not going to really worry too much about the shape of it at this point. It's a polyline. Once you select that, then I'm going to come in. I'm actually going to create a break holding the number 3 down on the keyboard, create a break in this area, pull the road down to the approximate position that I want, and I may hold the control key down here a little bit. It gives me a little bit more flexibility, and I'm just going to kind of create the shape that I'm after. I want to make that approximately parallel with the front of the house, and to guide me I'm going to use the Make Parallel tool and grab something in here to make it parallel with, and I'm just going to kind of work my way around creating the approximate shape that I'm after. We'll zoom in here a little bit, pull this over, and I'm going to pull this segment down and zoom back out, and I'm just going to pull this one over, something like that. And I'm going to have another break. I'm going to use the number 3 on the keyboard because I want to kind of have this to be a semicircle. I'm going to pull this over with this selection highlighted. I'm going to create an arc out of it, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'll pull this over a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing on this segment here, create another arc, and that way we can kind of use this and make a nice smooth area in here. Zoom out, and eventually I'll come in here and clean that up. In the 3D view, you can see the road actually follows the terrain and it has the curbing option already on it. On this road, I'm actually going to open it up and turn off the curbing for the time being. And then back in the plan view, I'm going to do some cleanup on the road and create the shape, follow this perimeter, somewhat like we did on creating this curb in here. And after a little bit of busy work, you can see that I've arced this side and added a few more twists and corners in this area where the pond is going to come in. Since I turned the curbing off on the road, I'm going to add curbing back in this area and off to the other side. You'll find a tool specifically for curbing, and if I zoom in here, I'm just going to come in and draw a curb out in this area, select the curb, and set the dimensions. Go ahead and set it to be 6 and 3, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side and just add that curb in. In the 3D view, once I have the curbing placed, this cutout in this area will be where the pond comes in, and then I'm going to go ahead in the next couple of steps and show you how to create the stairs that will come down from this area. And with the stair tool, I'm going to start from the top of the slab from the porch and work my way down until it hits the road. That way I can basically be flexible on the number of stairs that are required, in particular on the last segment. In my plan view, I'm going to turn my toolbar back on to the default configuration, and with the stair tool, if you click and drag your stairs, they will go up. If you press the Alt key and click and drag, they will go down. If I split my screen using Shift F6 on the keyboard, you don't see any stairs. That's because right now they happen to be buried inside of the terrain. This slab, if I open it up and look at the absolute elevation of this, it's sitting at 0, which is my top of subfloor. I'm going to use that value here for the stairs. We'll just zoom in here. And let's go ahead and open these stairs up and make a few changes. On the Newels and Balusters panel, I'm going to remove the railing on the right and left. On the style, I'm going to go ahead and remove that they are open, so those will be solid. We'll actually make those concrete. And on the general panel, first thing is let's remove the automatic heights, and that top height needs to be at 0. And then let's go ahead and lock the number of treads at 4. We'll set our riser height at 7, and you can see my floor to bottom now is minus 35 inches. The stairs are going in the downward direction, and you can see the preview of the way that's going to look. One more change on the style. I'm going to change my thickness of my tread to be 2 inches, and then we'll clean that up with the material painter in our 3D view. Let's go ahead and select OK. And you can see the stairs then jump back up. Let me change my view back to the standard view, and just kind of zoom in here. Let's use a material painter for the side of the stairs. Let's go ahead and use the default concrete on the side, and then for the tread I'm going to use this colored concrete from the porch and select that. So you get a slight variation of the color. And in the plan view, we'll go ahead and pull these stairs out so they almost fill the entire area. I'm going to put some walls underneath of here so they almost fill that whole area of the porch, and then we'll just snap that into the center place. I'm going to have a landing at the bottom of those stairs, and for this landing I'm going to use the slab tool and not the stair landing. Just gives me a little bit more flexibility. I can draw it exactly where I want, and I also won't have to worry about connection issues as well. So using the Polyline solid tool, I'm just going to come in and create the solid here, and then I'll just kind of rotate this around and then get the exact dimensions. I want it approximately 3 feet by 11 feet or so. Let's turn on our temporary dimensions so I can get this kind of positioned. I'm just going to put in 3 feet approximately, and then on this side I'm going to put in 152 inches and get that positioned. Just kind of pull that back over. That's probably a little bit longer than I want, so I'm just going to pull that over. For the landing, let's go ahead and use the match properties, match object eyedropper. I like the properties that have to do with the porch, and I'm just going to apply those to the slab. You notice it raised it up, and it also created the fill for it. Let's go ahead and make a couple of changes in here. One is the thickness. We'll set that to be 7 inches, and then the elevation, I want it to be absolute. For the elevation at top, I'm going to use the bottom height of the stairs, which was minus 35 inches. Select OK, and that should position that stair correctly into place. We'll use in the 3D view, I'll now use the eyedropper and match the color off of this porch above, and now that's positioned into place. In the plan view, I'm going to select the stairs we placed earlier, use the copy tool, hold my control key down, and I'm just going to kind of slide these over to the approximate position that I want, open them up, and change the attributes. And previously our bottom height was set at 35 inches. I'm actually going to use that number, just use the copy tool. I'm going to lock the top and set the top to be at the minus 35 inches, and then go back and change my riser height back to the 7 inches. Select OK, and let's zoom out a little bit. You can see that my stairs now have started down the slope. For the next landing below this stair segment, I'm going to select the landing above it, use the copy tool. In this case I'm going to use the reflect about, use the stairs, place that landing, and then open it up and change the elevation at top to minus 70 to correctly position that landing. Go ahead and zoom out a little bit on both sides of our view. Our final stair segment, again I'm going to use this stair, use the copy tool, and pull these stairs down into the approximate location, and then I'm going to resize these stairs, and let's just pull these down, and let's open them up and set some of the dimensions here. Again, the top height, if I lock the top and make that minus 70 inches and then change the riser back to 7 inches, and then perhaps we'll also lock the number of treads and change that to 7. And then select OK. Let's see what we have in our 3D view. Zoom out here a little bit. So I'm pretty close. I may need to make a few adjustments in here. The next step that I'm going to do is go through and create the supporting walls, terrain walls. They're not necessarily bearing walls, but I'm going to create some terrain retention walls so that we can bear those stairs on it and provide some terrain holdback for the flower beds. For the retaining and terrain walls, I'm going to use a wall type that's about 6 inches. Selecting my default wall, in the wall types I'm going to choose the 6-inch concrete wall. This is non-bearing wall, so it doesn't have a footing on it, and you can see that I've put the fill in here accordingly. With that wall selected, I'm going to come in, drag out some of these walls. Just pull this down to the end of the stairs, and again a little bit of busy work here. Let's pull this over here a little bit, and I'm just going to come in here and shape out the different walls. Sometimes it's easy to turn off the stairs so you can actually see where some of these walls go, and we'll just take this wall all the way up to the top. Once the walls are drawn, you can see them in 3D, and I can modify these in 3D or in a cross-section view. From the plan view, I'm going to do a back clip cross-section and just go through part of the outside portion of this wall and just zoom in a little bit, toggle on my glasshouse view so I can kind of see where those stairs are. Making some modifications to this wall, I'll pull it up, and then using the number 3 on the keyboard for break, I'm going to click a series of breaks in this wall, and these are just somewhat arbitrary so that I can use these for editing. And let's see, to begin with, I'm going to pull one of these down, and you can kind of see through the translucency of the stair, and it helps me in positioning these elements. So I'll just pull this down and make some editing so that it begins to make sense. And again, I want to try to use the nosing of the stair here to create the exact area that I want. And we'll just kind of come down here. Before I get too carried away with the rest of some of these edits in here, I'm going to go back into the 3D view, and I'm going to edit in this view as well. Simply pull down some of these walls so that they're in the right position, and then I can connect the outer walls to these. I can't really see exactly where I'm at in some cases, but some of these walls it's pretty easy to pull down to the approximate right height. Again, you can use the glasshouse view to get and be able to see through some of these surfaces. Go back into my cross-section view, and now I can kind of align this wall along the top. Let's pull that up a little bit along the other wall. So back into the cross-section view here, I'm just going to come in, and now I'm going to pull this up so that it's even with the top of this wall. And we'll just make some of these edits. Again, it's a little bit of busy work in here. Pull this over to the approximate top. I'm going to actually pull it down to the top of this platform. Pull this one down so that it's even. Another break in here, and then we'll pull the top of this one down. Back to the 3D view. I can make some edits further in this view, and I probably want to pull this wall over, and I may need to mark that wall as through at the end. So I can just simply open up that wall, mark it through at end and through at the start. That way I can now pull that wall through, and then we'll just pull this one over here a little bit further. Again, a little bit of busy work in here. You need to see, I need to pull this wall up. I need to break this line, this wall, and pull it down. And I'm just going to kind of skip ahead and pull the rest of these walls down. Select this wall, and I'll pull it down, and again, kind of pull it so that it meets the top of this wall over here, and pull this one down to the top of the slab. Select this area here, and if I can, put a break in approximately in this area here, and maybe one more break over here. That allows me to pull this down. And again, using the cross-section views are going to allow you to get a bit more accurate than what I'm doing right here. And we'll pull this wall down. And we'll pull this wall down as well. Alright, so I kind of skipped ahead and finished editing the walls the best that I could, and you can see that relatively well-formed walls that are going to support the stairs, and now I need to go in and in the 3D view here add the terrain fillers for the plant beds. To fill these planters, I'm going to use a terrain feature, and I'm going to create the fill for the planters on the right side of the stairs and then on the left hand side of the stairs. Under the terrain menu, there is a terrain feature, and I'm just going to use a rectangular feature, come out here and draw these. These do affect the terrain. Let's go ahead and rotate this, and then I'll just kind of position it into place over the top of this planter. A little bit of editing and snapping, and once I have that in place, I'm going to open it up. And first of all, the materials, let's change that to a bark material using the search here. We'll type in bark 3 as one of our materials. Select OK. And for the height, I'm going to put 12 inches for the height and 12 inches for the thickness. And then for the fill style that shows in the 2D view, let's change that to an earth and increase the spacing and then lighten the color here just a little bit. Select OK. In the camera you can see the bark. It's not exactly flat. I could have made that flat, but it's going to follow the terrain, and once I fill that with flowers, that'll still look great. Back into the plan view, I'm going to copy that terrain feature that we just created and slide a copy of that over into the other planter. And again, a little bit of busy work in here. This one's a little bit more complex because of the shape of it, and using the 3 on the keyboard here, just create a few breaks so that we can shape that out, snap it to the walls, and another break in here or two. And we'll just kind of shape this. Yet another break. So some busy work in creating this, but doesn't take too terribly long. And that's pretty close. And I need to come down here, snap this to the edge of the wall. Another break in this area down here using the 3 on the keyboard. And I'll pull this one out and then down just a little bit. Now for this terrain region, I'm going to set the thickness of this to be 18, a little bit thicker because the terrain was going down. And I'll do the same for the height. Select OK, back into the 3D view, and you can see the terrain has followed. And then I'm going to put another one in here as we get ready to do the pond. So again, I'll just copy this and slide it up here, and then we'll shape that one and just kind of pull this around and probably go ahead and make this a slight curve since we're going to add our pond in there. The planters are now ready to have the plants. Before I do that, I'm going to move on to the next segment of the video and actually place the water feature, and then we'll go in and kind of the final step will be placing the other planter beds and the actual plants themselves. Moving on to the water feature. I'm going to use the road tool because it actually follows the terrain. We have a stream tool, but that's more for a mountain stream that's somewhat irregular. And this one is a form stream with a concrete liner. And in my overview, you can see that the stream then has a pond that is toward the front of the property. And I'm going to use a cul-de-sac. And the reason I'm using those tools, they just follow the terrain. And I'm just going to take advantage of their capabilities of doing that. I'm going to begin by creating the walls using the terrain walls for the reflecting pond. And my default wall type is still using that terrain wall. I'm just going to come in here, drag out the walls, and then let that form, let's bump that to our terrain bed, let that form the area for the reflecting pond. I'm going to end up pulling those walls up a little bit higher so that the water is somewhat even with the porch or near even, so it looks like an infinity pool coming off. In my plan view, let me just maximize my plan view. I'm now going to use the road tool, and I'm going to toggle on my terrain set, choose the road tool, and with my road tool, let's go ahead and look at the defaults for our road. So it has curbing. I'm okay with those. For the general road, my width is 42.5 inches, including the curb. The height of the road off of the ground is 2 inches. And notice that my flare is removed for the radius on the start and end of the road. That way it makes it easier for me to draw these roads segments and not have them connect with radius. Typically nice to have if you're doing a neighborhood street off of the driveway, a nice radius in there. With those defaults set, using that road tool, I'm going to come in here. So I'll draw road segment number 1 in this area, road segment number 2, which they should join if I'm close enough, over in this area. And then I'm going to draw a couple of road segments in here just to kind of be able to create my slope. Road segment 1 here. You'll need to zoom out a little bit. And then another road segment in this area right in here. And it may join to our driveway. And a little bit of manipulation here. Let's go ahead and pull this road back in so that it's somewhat inside of our pond. And then we'll slide this over in this area right here. And then I'm going to slide this area back so that it's not quite as much bend on that. And then for the segment up here, I'm just going to select it, use the parallel tool, and make that parallel to the wall. And again, slide it out just a little bit here. Make sure I have the right tool when I select that. So I'll grab the center handle here and just pull it out. It's approximately where I want to have the road segment. Pull the segment back here just a little bit. Select the outside edge, and I'm going to use the convert line to arc. And using the diamond, I'm just going to kind of put a curvature in that area. Same thing on this side. I'm going to go ahead and use the convert line to arc, and holding the diamond down, I usually hold the control key down and get a little bit of precise movement, and I should be able to maybe pull that back a little bit. Now underneath the road tool is a cul-de-sac tool, and it sounds kind of crazy, but that's what I'm going to use to create my pond. I have to click on the edge of it, and once that's selected, I'm going to rotate it around and then try to reconnect it the best that I can and kind of position it in the area that I want. Rotate it here just a little bit more. And I'm going to group select both of these items. With them selected, I'm going to use the tool called Polyline Union and select that, and the program is going to then use that as a merge. I'm going to select delete original, and in the floor plan view that cleaned up pretty nicely. I had to twist that a little bit more, And then in the 3D view here, you can see that the road, soon to be pond, follows the terrain contour. In the library, let's search for water and find the appropriate water, and I'm just going to apply that onto that component. And when you ray trace this, water is translucent, so what I'll do is I'm going to actually make a copy of this in place, and then I'm going to convert that into a terrain feature and make it just solid. So I'm going to make that a terrain feature. I'm going to set the elevation of it a little bit lower than the pond. So I'm going to set it to be -2 inches with a thickness of 2 inches, and then on the materials I'm just going to make sure that it's a concrete material. That way when I ray trace the scene, it's not going to have basically have a hole through it, because the water shows a transparency that goes all the way through there. Next is to pull these walls up. Maybe I'll start with this wall, and I'm just going to pull these up a little bit so that it's going to retain the water, and we'll get the other wall on the other side here. Use my rotate tool. Let me close my library down. Use my rotate tool, and I'm just going to grab that wall and pull that up. As I switch back to the plan view, zoom in, I'm going to use a slab and fill that reflecting pond using a slab tool. Just come in the inside of these walls, and with that CAD object selected, set the elevation of it, and I'm going to set the thickness of it to be 2 inches, and I'm going to make it absolute elevation, and I'm going to set the elevation to -20. Remember, my subfloor is at 0, and if I've got that right back in the 3D view here, if I tilt my view up, you can see, change that to a vector style so you can see it a little bit better. You can see that I now have the foundation for the pond. In the floor plan view, let me just select that CAD object. I'm going to copy it in place and then just make it so that it goes to the outside of those walls. That way it's going to have the infinity look, and then I'm going to change the elevation here. In this case, we'll make it 8 1/4, and then for the elevation at top, I'm going to actually set that to the 8 1/4, the -8 1/4, and then for the thickness, I'm going to make that 30 1/4. Probably thicker than I need to be. And then finally on the materials, let's change that from a concrete back to that water, and I used water 1. Choose that material, select OK, back into the 3D view. You can see the water, and let me change my standard view back on, and I'm going to then pull those walls back down because we have them a little bit too high. So just again select these walls here, and it looks like as soon as I selected that wall, they jumped into place, so it must have done an automatic rebuild on the walls. And for the most part, we have the reflecting the infinity pond the way we like it. When you notice the back of this, my siding, I'm going to use a concrete slab as I would inside the porch in here between my floor truss, so that I have a barrier in there, and if you open up my sample plan, that's what I've created between the pond and the house. And I used a layer called CAD Exterior to do that. And I just opened up that sample plan. You can see that layer right in here that I created as a protective layer between the pond and the house. And the next step that we're going to move on and look at are adding the landscaping plants and final touches in here. The final segment for the terrain and site plan for the Breckenridge project is landscaping and plants. And my rendering that I have on the screen, you can see my plant bed in the front. I'm going to kind of focus on that. I've got some accent planters around the design, and then I have some trees in the foreground and background. And when I go back into the program and I'm looking at my plan view, there's a tool called Plant Search. And here's where you can search for the common name, variety name. It's kind of a visual search. You can come in and type a variety of aspects about your plants. And in this case, I'm going to search for a Japanese maple and hit the search key here. And I have 7 different results that show up. When you select that, you can then hit View Item. That's going to take you into the library where you can find the information about those plants. Now I'm looking for a slightly different Japanese maple. I'm going to click on one of the other items here. I'm going to just select this last one here, hit View Item. You can get the plant description. And this is a smaller tree. I'm going to hit Cancel out of here. Double click on this, and I'm going to place that in my design. Once I select that plant, I'm going to go in and open it up and specify the information about the height for this plant. This is a smaller variety than I'm using, so I'm going to enter in 4 feet, and I'm going to remove the retain aspect ratio and make it slightly smaller, just 36 inches. And in theory, if I've done this right, it should auto adjust to that plant bed. Let's go back into our 3D view and take a look. And I'll just kind of zoom in. You can see that small maple that we've placed. Back in the floor plan here, I'm just going to replicate that. Using the copy button and the sticky mode, I'm just going to create a variety of copies of this and click and place and somewhat add some randomness to it. And I'm going to go back into 3D and maybe change the height of them so that, again, it adds some random variety. If you place a terrain bed, there's a plant distribute option if you're just going to use the same plants. But I'm kind of creating a variety of these plants in my design. So I'll switch over into 3D view, and again, you can kind of pull these up and modify them to add some randomness to them. That's what I like to do so that they don't all look the same. Back in the floor plan view, let's go back into the plant chooser, and in this case I'm going to search for rose and see if I can find one that will work well. Let's double click that and let's view that item first of all. And now I'm going to place a handful of these in the design as well. And I'm just going to accept the default height of these items that they come in. And I'm just kind of placing randomly some of these inside the design. And then back into the search area, I'm looking for a Indian paintbrush, which is actually a Wyoming Indian paintbrush. Find that item. That's what I'm after. And now I can place, and these are pretty small. I'm going to zoom in and make this quite a bit larger in this case. In this case, let's go ahead and make that 25 inches. That's pretty big. And now I can use the multiple copy and the paste mode in that area. And again, I'm just going to place some of these randomly throughout the plant bed and try to get some of these items in here. Back into the 3D view, you can see the plant bed is starting to fill in. I do the same thing over here and fill in those plant beds as well. If you spend time with landscaping plants or really any objects in your program, you can block those and save them to the library. That's exactly what I've done for my landscape plants. If I open up my library, I have a Breckenridge folder. I have a landscaping folder with prearranged landscaping beds. And I'm just going to click and place these. I can use these in other plans, and I'm placing them kind of outside of the area since they're a little bit constricted. And I'm just going to select these objects and move them into place, again holding the control key down, and place those. So it's a great way to save time. I've actually placed the back and side yard. Zoom out, place these, turn on the architectural blocks layer, and kind of position this into place approximately. And also for the side yard, and with the side yard I also did the stepping stones here. I'll just kind of zoom in and place that approximately where it is. Back into the 3D view, rotate around. You can see the plants on the back, and it looks like I need to just kind of select that and slide it into place a little bit closer, and then we'll kind of go around to the other side and make sure that those plants as well are in position, and that looks pretty good. A couple of final items. One would be the trees. Again, in the plant chooser you can choose the ponderosa or the oak that I've used. I've also placed those items in my library, and I'm just going to place a few of these ponderosa trees around the design. And again, I'd probably come in and then resize those in a 3D view, and I'm going to grab the oak tree and place a few of these oak trees. And again, I like to add variability, so back in the 3D view here, and I need to turn the layer on for the plants and trees. I actually keep two different layers for those because sometimes those trees can be quite large. Once the trees are in display, we'll zoom out here a little bit, and again I like to just click on these plants, and you can easily adjust these down or up depending on what you want to do to add a little bit of variability in here since you don't want them to look exactly the same. Let's bring that back down to ground level. And so with adding that variability in there, you can create your entire landscape. And then the final aspect are the planters that are in the bonus plant library that I got. And again, let's see if I can place this in 3D. Hey, that looks pretty good. And then I'll just create and place a few more of those plants in front of the garage. And let's see if I can get one more over there. That's pretty close. Once we're finished, we kind of zoom out and rotate around. You can see all the landscaping items. Place some planters up on the porch and up on the patio for the deck. I'll open up the final model here. You can see that I've added all of the plants and landscaping on the side yard as well as on the backyard, and then our water features in the front. Well, that completes the landscaping portion for the Breckenridge design. It's also the final segment in the video series for the terrain and site plan. A little bit longer video. We went through and created our terrain perimeter, elevation data, finalized the site plan, added the driveway and walks, stairs up, water feature, and if you want to take a look at this plan in further detail, the construction drawings are available on the website.